All right. Namaste. Welcome everyone for today's webinar, the first part of knowing the Upanishads. So, thank you for joining. Please share with us in the chat where you're zooming in from for this interesting webinar that is going to dive deep into this particular Upanishad. And this one in particular begins with the striking inquiry: by whom is the mind directed? Who empowers the senses? What lies beneath speech and thought? So in this webinar, we're going to explore this first part of the Kena Upanishad, along with Sri Shankara Bhasya, the commentary, uncovering how this short yet profound Upanishad shifts our perspective from the known to the knower. So guiding us today is Dr. Venkatraman Swaminathan. Dr. Swaminathan is amazing. He's been an HUA faculty for years now, and he obtained his doctorate in material science from USC, University of Southern California, back in 1975. He worked at Bell Laboratories for 21 years in many aspects of fiber optic communication systems, and he was part of why we have broadband internet, right? He's co-authored 160 publications in peer-reviewed journals, co-authored and edited 4 books. He's got 8 patents, but it was his long association with Arshavidi Gurukulam and Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati that has brought him to us. He actually spent 30 years at the Gurukulam and associated himself and learned from many of the wonderful acharyas. And he's even written and published a few books, Day After Day with Swami Dayananda Saraswati, where he's taken quotes of Pujaji and put them into a book. And he's written many other things. Dr. Swaminathan is a very beloved faculty at HUA. He gets into deep subjects with intensity, but also in a way that's welcoming. So we are glad to have Dr. Swaminathan leading us today. And if you haven't yet, please put in the chat where you're zooming in from. John Jones from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Glad to have you. Shankarji from Chicago. Welcome, welcome. All right. With that, let me hand it to Dr. Swaminathan to help us with the first part of knowing.
Thank you, Ankurji, for the kind introduction. Greetings to you all. I will start with a prayer, then we will proceed. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Karavavakai, Tejasvinhavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavakaihi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the subject matter today is to introduce you some glimpses of the content of a very significant Upanishad in the Vedas, the Kena Upanishad. And we will be studying this with Śaṅkara Bhashya. The course is contemplated to be offered in 2 parts, part 1 in the fall this year and continuing in the winter, the part 2. Vedānta Nama Upanishad. Just let me get my pointer here, 1 second. Vedānta Nama Upanishad. Vedanta is a subject matter which contain in the Upanishad sections of the Vedas. The word Upanishad itself means both the self-knowledge, the knowledge of oneself, as well as the text that reveals that knowledge. Suppose if I say physics, the physics is the name of the text, but also the subject matter is physics. Like this Upanishad, the subject matter is self-knowledge, and the text is also called the same. Now, what is Vedanta? Vedanta examines the ontological reality of a triad. What is the triad? We have a jiva. A jiva means an individual, and the individual interacts with the surroundings. In a broader sense, you can call it the jagat or the world. When the world, what you interface with, what the individual interfaces with, is an intelligent creation. So there has to be an intelligent being as the creator. We call that intelligence source of creation as Ishvara. But then in the Vedantic context, there is an absolute reality which is the reality of all these three, the three corners of the triangle: the jiva, the individual, and the world that the individual perceives and interacts with, and the causal factor of that intelligent universe, the Ishvara. But all these three are governed by one absolute reality which is given a name in the Vedas. The name is Brahman. Brahman means limitless, the whole. You can say it is that absolute reality. Now, in examining now the relationships, there is, as I mentioned, there is an obvious relationship between the Jagat, the perceived world, and Ishvara, the causal factor, and the relationship is one of cause-effect relationship. The Ishvara is the cause, the effect is the creation, the Jagat. There is also an interaction which describes how the jiva, the individual, transacts with the Jagat, the world. And the transaction is marked by a subject-object duality. The individual is the subject, interacts with the objective world. Objective world means the world serves as an object of the subject. Then there is a third relationship, which is a very important relationship. What is the relationship between the individual and the causal factor? The Vedanta, the Upanishads, reveal an identity between the individual and the causal factor. But for the discussion today, for this time, we will look at this relationship, the relationship between the individual and how the relationship between the individual and the world that the individual interacts with. I mentioned it is a subject-object relationship. The subject is the individual, the self. The object is other than the self, so we say the non-self. This interaction reveals a very fundamental axiom, so to speak, and that is when the subject objectifies whatever in the creation, or even it is something not known to you right now, but still you can objectify. Even concepts the subject objectifies. Objectifies means brings into the level of cognition. The subject is, say, I. In Sanskrit, aham. The aham pratyaya vishayaha. The cognition called I. And in some loose terms, let us also define it as Atma. This term we would have heard in the Hindu parlance. So Atma, meaning the self, the I sense. And you can also say it is the conscious being who perceives, objectifies the not I, which we say idam cognition, the object of this cognition. This is a pronoun, this or that. Obviously, it's not I, so it is anatma. If this is atma, it is not atma. And it is anything that is objectified is non-conscious, so it is a matter principle, and here it's a conscious principle. So this is the subject-object relationship. Now, what needs to be examined is the subject-object. So obviously there is a duality. Duality is there is a subject and there is an object. Is the subject-object duality ontologically real? By ontology, I mean from an existential point of view, from an existential truth of this subject-object, is it really existentially real? So that is what I mean by ontology here. So is the subject-object duality ontologically real? Now, the important axiom that emerges from the subject-object relationship is that whatever the subject I, the self, objectifies, it can be the variegated universe. I see a mountain, I see a cow, I see a car, I see a home. But the truth that is immediately obvious to oneself is what is objectified by me is not me. Nobody will claim I am the mountain or I am the cow, I am the home. Everything is objectified by you. What is objectified by you is not you. That is a very fundamental axiom. Now, suppose you extend this one step further. In addition to these variegated objects in the world, I also objectify the body mind sense complex, which seems to be inherently or very intimately related with the I. I see my hand, I see my body. I say it's my body, my mind, my senses, my intellect, my memory. Even the status of I as the knower, I am now talking talker, seer, etc., are all equally objectified. Now, if I apply that axiom, what is objectified by me is not me, then the truth here that emerges is that I am not the body because I objectify the body. I am not the senses because the senses are objectified, and so on. So a query, a question hangs over, and the question is, who am I? Who am I? It appears that I am intimately connected with the body mind sense complex, no doubt. But the fact that I objectify them reveals that I cannot be them. They are associated with me, no doubt, but I am not them. So who am I? So in examining this very basic question, what is the truth about myself? Who is this I? So we can examine our experiences and gather some insights about this I. So let me introduce you two experiences, and I will I apologize to use some technical terms, but hopefully I will explain them well enough for you to understand. There is a concept of what we say anvaya and vyatireka. These are Sanskrit terms. But what this means is concurrent continuance and concurrent discontinuance. I will explain what they are. Let's examine our daily experience. There is a waking state, there is a dream state, there is a deep sleep state. Everybody goes through, all living beings in some way or other go through these three states daily, on a daily basis. Now, if you examine further, look into this further, in this waking state, the body and mind are still associated with me, and there is an I which is associated with this body mind sense complex. But in the case of the dream, the waker does not continue into the dream. There is a dreamer, and the dream is purely a projection of the mind. The body doesn't continue in the dream, but the mind is still there. The mind projects, and the mind in fact projects a body similar to the body of the waking state. And with this, the dreamer conducts activities like exactly the waker conducted activities in the waking state. And there is an I, which is a subjective I, purely from the projection of the mind. An I which is different from the waker I. Then the deep sleep, both the body and mind have resolved. So naturally, this I, which is in the waking state, let's call it an empirical I, and the I in the dream state, let us call it a subjective I, both those I's have resolved, and the body mind completely senses are all resolved. But the interesting thing is, when I wake up, I know I am the one who went to sleep. So there seems, and I am the one who dreamt. So there seems to be a continuity in these three states of experience. There is a continuity, there is an I, which doesn't change, persistently present, like you have a lamp which is continuously lighted in these three states of experience. So we now introduce this technical term, vyatireka, mean concurrent discontinuance. The body mind are there when this I is present, but they don't continue in the other states of experience, but the I still continue. This I, this green I, the I which is the continuous I present in all the three states of experience. So this represents a concurrent continuance persistent in all the three states of experience, while the body mind and an empirical or a subjective I connected with that body mind are coming and going, not persistent. This is one experience, one data point. Now let's look at another data point. The human experience of life, various stages. A child, I was the child, a young person, and I grow, middle aged, and a senior person. Various the whole stages are all morphing from one to the other. There seemed to be, in a loose term, an evolution. But in all these The I associated with the child. I am the child. I am an young adult. I am middle aged. I am old. I am the old person. There seems to be an I which is associated with the stage that one is in the life, and there is an I which provides a continuity of experience, the same as the waking, dream, sleep experiences. So all these three, a non-quenched I, a persistent I, an empirical and a subjective I together. So just to recap, in the waking, dream and sleep experiences, there is a concurrent continuance. The consciousness or the self, it is one thing that concurrently continues in all the three states of experience as a persistent factor. Concurrent discontinuance, the non-self. Why non-self? Because they are objectified by me, by the self. The body, mind and the world are present concurrently with this conscious I in the waking state, but their existence is marked by discontinuance. They drop out in other experiences. In the dream, the body doesn't continue. In the deep sleep, both the body and mind are resolved. They are intermittent. Same thing with the life stages. The I sense, a constant I sense which is persistent, and life stages which are continuously transforming. There is a discontinuous concurrence and there is a continuous concurrence. So therefore, we get some insights. Is there an I which is an absolute I, non-changing, ever present, and intimately associated with an I which incidental based on how it associates itself with the body, mind, sense complex as well as the world. So in this situation, this clarity of what is I, who am I, is not really clear. Sometimes we take the I to be granted. We sometimes associate it with the waking I, and sometimes in the waking a state of experience, there is also a lot of subjectivity of that I. So the nature of oneself is generally taken for granted, and the Kena Upanishad questions these assumptions about the self and throws light on the nature of the self. And it does this in a very beautiful manner. The opening mantra in this Upanishad itself is very enigmatic. The student asks about the nature of I, but doesn't come out and ask the teacher, hey, please explain to me what is the nature of I. He phrases the question in a very peculiar, enigmatic way. And the question is this: Kena ishitam preshitam manaha patati. Kena, by whom? Ishitam, willed by. Preshitam, prompted by. Two verbs, similar meanings, but there is a nuanced difference. The question is phrased as willed by whom, prompted by whom. Does the mind alight upon its object? The mind is constantly thinking, moving from one object to the another. All these cognitions are continuous, at least in the waking avastha. And who is driving this mind? Is the mind falls upon objects randomly, or there is some serendipity involved, or there is somebody sitting behind the mind, ordering the mind, willing the mind to, hey, think about this now, or think about this later, like this. So willed by whom? Kena. That kena by whom is the question about Who is this I? Iti. That is the nature of the inquiry. Now, let us look at this one sentence, this opening sentence, and parse it into a couple of terms. There is a necessity of separation. By that I mean, mind is an instrument. And if there is an instrument, then there is a wielder of that instrument. Suppose if I have a stick in my hand and I wield the stick is an instrument. But there has to be somebody who operates the instrument. That is the wielder of the instrument. Now, it is a logical necessity to separate the instrument from the wielder. In other words, the wielder is the cognizer, the subject, and the subject has to be logically separated from the instrument that the subject operates. Now, the mind itself is an object because it can be observed. I say my mind is restless. So, the mind is also objectified. Therefore, the subject who observes the mind must be different from the mind. So, now we are starting the search of the subject, the true wielder of the mind. What can this wielder be? Suppose if the ultimate wielder were another entity that wills the mind to act, that will being itself a thought, a mental modification, this would require a second mind to will the first mind, and so on. So we end up with a defect called infinite regress, anavastha doshaha. So this doesn't settle who the I is. Okay. What other way we can resolve this? The presence of those two verbs, kena ishitam preshitam, we will study this detail in the course, but for the time being I will just summarize. From that combination of these two verbal forms and the commentary of Shankara, there is a possibility that arises, and the possibility, the resolution of this dichotomy, who the wielder is, maybe there is a presence without volition. So the Kena Upanishad resolves the shift by shifting the focus from an active wielder who wills to a non-volitional, unchanging presence. I will give an analogy. This might help to grasp this point. So just like if you have a magnet, in the mere presence of the magnet, the iron filings around it will become active. The iron filings will move. That movement, the magnet doesn't cause that movement, but the mere presence of that magnet creates a movement. That much is the analogy. So like this, the mind, like the iron filings, functions and draws in objects, object to object, etc., not because the self doesn't participate, it is like a magnet, but it exerts a conscious effort, but simply because the mind exerts a conscious effort, simply because the self is present. So this non-volitional presence is the very nature of consciousness, the conscious principle, which the Upanishad calls it Brahman. This consciousness, Chit, is not just a separate subject or a hidden wielder, it is the fundamental reality that constitutes everything. It is the content of the subject when there is a role as a subject. It is also the content of the object, the entire Jagat or world which is objective. So it is the truth of the subject the ontological truth of the subject, the ontological truth of the object, both are nothing but different appearances or manifestations of this conscious principle. This consciousness is the content of every cognition. So the supposed wielder of the instrument, kene, by whom, and the instrument itself, whether it is a mind, body, senses or whatever, are all at their core, at the fundamental level, nothing but consciousness appearing as various forms and functions. This, what has happened here is the duality of subject-object interaction with which we started, which was the root of the question, by whom things happen. That is the duality is the root of that question. That subject-object duality dissolves. So this is the nutshell description of what Kena Upanishad examines. So the topics, what we are going to do in this course, I will describe this, the description, the contents, what are the learning objectives, and a week by week plan. The subject matter falls in the discipline of core Hindu studies under the HUA banner. And there are, under core Hindu studies, there are many courses. You can look them up in the website. But there are two important courses: Introduction to Upanishads Part 1, Introduction to Upanishads Part 2. These two courses cover the entire 10 Dasopanishads of the important 10 important Upanishads of the Vedas. But what we are going to do is deep dive into one of those 10 Upanishads, the Kena Upanishad. The Kena Upanishad is from the Samaveda. It is from the Talavakra Shaka of the Samaveda. It's the first 1 to 8 chapters deal with karma and upasana of this shaka. The 9th chapter of the Talavakra Shaka is the Kena Upanishad. It takes its name from the first word of the text, Kena Ishitam Preshitam Iti. That's how the student asked the question. So the Upanishad gains that name. Every Upanishad is some sort of a dialogue between the teacher and the student. In some Upanishads, the name of the teacher and the name of the students are specifically, explicitly mentioned. In other Upanishads, they are not mentioned. But the style of the teaching is a discussion between the teacher and the student. So the student has asked a question, Kena Ishitam Preshitam Manaha Patati iti. So that Kena, the first word of that mantra, is taken to be the name of the Upanishad. It is a dialogue between a teacher and a student. The teaching style is paradoxical because there are declarations that you will see, that which is not known by the mind, but by which the mind is said to know. So this kind of paradoxical declarations have to be unraveled, and in unraveling these paradoxes, the Upanishads dismantles the objectifying tendencies of the human mind. Then there is an allegorical tale. It describes the various gods like fire, wind, etc. The gods' arrogance and their eventual enlightenment via Uma. Uma represents the Vedas in that allegory. The text emphasizes self-knowledge is a recognition that the knower must disappear for true knowledge to arise. The epistemological inquiry itself is very radical in this Upanishad, because as I explained in the beginning with the question, by whom is the mind directed? By whom does the breath move? So it impels the student towards introspection, focusing not on what is perceived, but on that which enables the perception. It is the Upanishad is marked for elegance and brevity of all the Upanishads. It has only 4 sections, 4 kantas. It's the most succinct among the Upanishads. Each verse contains significant depth, and so not only you try to understand these mantras, but these mantras are meant for deep introspection and meditation. Shankara wrote commentaries for all the 10 important Upanishads in addition to commentary of Gita and Brahma Sutras. But for this one Upanishad, it's very unique in that he wrote 2 commentaries. They are known as Padabhashya, that is commentary on the words of the mantras. Then there is Vakya Bhashya, a commentary based upon the theme. It is conjectured that since this Upanishad reveals the nature of the self in such an elegant manner, it is conjectured that Shankara perhaps felt the necessity to write 2 commentaries for this Upanishad. A commentary based on the words and a commentary based on the whole sentence of the mantras. So this is unique in that respect. But in this course, we will study only the Padabhashya. The course doesn't lend itself to go to the next stage, but perhaps in the future, we can study this great Upanishad with the Vakya Bhashya as well. The course is going to be offered in 2 parts, as I mentioned. The part 1 begins in the fall semester. There are 4 sections, as I said. The first 2 sections will be in part 1. The remainder 2 sections will be in part 2. The first part will discuss which will present the dialogue on the origin of cognition, and then will examine the epistemological paradoxes. When we continue the part 2 of this Upanishad, we will look at the allegorical narration and also the concluding instructions on the self-knowledge. So we will do this with the Shankara Bhashya, the Padabhashya. This Padabhashya is in Sanskrit. So we will read the original Sanskrit mantra as well as the commentary. We will use the mantra, lot of reasoning, discussions, logic, and then comparison with our own experiences, daily experiences, which are important for Vedantic inquiry. And a discipline of studying Vedanta, that is the Upanishad, in terms of Shravanam, listening to the scriptures, Mananam, reflecting on what you listen, and contemplating, Nididhyasana, on what you have studied. So in this Upanishad, we hope to examine these 3 methods of study: Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. So I have given a detailed week by week rollout of this class in part 1. I won't go through this list here in detail, but the points I want to mention is there is a Shanti mantra, an invocation. This is customary in the study of Upanishad. Every Upanishad associated with it an invocatory mantra, a dhyana sloka, a meditative mantra, is called Shanti mantra. That invocatory sloka is very important. It reveals a lot of things about the subject matter. So there is a Shanti mantra as part of the Samaveda of this Upanishad, which this Upanishad belongs to. So we will study that Shanti mantra. Then Shankara has written an introduction before he writes the commentary, detailed commentary for each verse. So we will study that introduction, which will provide the context. The introduction is called Bhumika. Bhumika means setting the context. So we will do that in the second week. Then the 2 kantas that we are going to study in part 1. The first kanta has 9 mantras. The second has 5 mantras. So these 9 plus 5, 14 mantras, we will study them in the 8 weeks that we have for this course. So there are 10-week program. And like this, the part 2 which will follow in the subsequent quarter, we will study the third and the fourth kanda. The third kanda contains 12 mantras, the fourth contains the 9 mantras. And then at the end of the course, we will look at the whole recap of the whole teaching, and we will also talk about how to integrate it with practice. My teacher, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, has written his teachings have come out of the teachings of this Upanishad have come out as a book, so that book is available. Then we will look at Shankara's commentary, Padabhashya, and the class notes. Some exposure to Vedanta would be helpful, and ability to read Sanskrit either in the original Devanagari, or I will provide transliteration in every class. Side by side, there will be a transliteration. So people who are not able to read the Devanagari can look at the transliteration. This is a tool for me to teach. So teaching will be in English, but I will use this to explain my thoughts, to unravel the subject matter. So that much of use of Sanskrit will be there. So Sanskrit is more my instrument to teach the class, but the teaching will be in English. If you follow the transliteration, you can read the text that I will be reading in the class. This is the completion criteria. We will have 2 exams. The exams are important in this respect. It will be written essays of whatever we have covered in the previous classes. Writing your thoughts, what you understand, but when you put it in paper, when you write them down, you will discover that you will be questioning your own clarity of the subject matter. And by the training of writing your thoughts will actually give you more clarity of the subject matter. So this is very important. So I would emphasize that. So we will have 2 essays. The exams will be writing an essay of 1 to 2 pages in English and expressing what you have understood from the classes. So that's my conclusion of my slides. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Wow, that was amazing, Dr. Swaminathan. Anuji was saying it is too technical. She said that early in the webinar, but I think as you elaborated, expanded, discussed, it's sunk into my head, but very interesting, high level stuff. Um, so we'll take your questions. Please put in the Q&A box. If you have any specific questions about the course, about the program, about how this fits in with the certificate program in Hindu studies, I think this is a elective, but not a core class in the certificate program in Hindu studies. I put the details of the course in the chat. You can click there. It's going to be at the same time, Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's why we're having this webinar right now. There's some details there. Ruchiji is asking if he could do part 2 before part 1. He's already taking 2 classes this next quarter. Doesn't know if he can take another one. Could you invert the order or do you not recommend that?
No, I won't recommend it. So we will study systematically from verse number 1 to the verse number last.
Yeah, the way that it sounded, it definitely builds on itself, the
Right,
con
right,
the
right.
concepts, the dialogue. So, Ruchiji, I'm glad that you're taking 2 classes. Maybe you could get a third one in if you appreciated Dr. Swaminathan. And yeah, we have a whole range of courses, of faculty, as you experienced right here with Dr. Swaminathan. This is one of the heavier courses, the one of the ones that goes deeper and really gets you to think at that kind of philosophical, right? Who is the perceiver and what are we perceiving? Very, very interesting stuff. John Jones says he liked it, very informative, and makes him want to take the class even more. Yes, John, please do enroll in this course. Vandanaji is asking if you can write the name of the books we will be reading from. And so what we do at HUA is when you enroll in a course, you get access to our learning management system. You log in, and week by week, what the readings are, Dr. Swaminathan will have uploaded in a usually in a PDF format, like he was saying, the transliteration, the Sanskrit version, the different commentaries, the assignments, all of that will be loaded week by week with the Zoom link, with the assignments. So um, we'll get into that. But is there a particular book that you would recommend on this, or a particular commentary? If
Yeah,
people,
I mentioned the Kena Upanishad written by Swami Dayananda Saraswati.
yeah.
You might find it in Amazon. So you can buy that book and read it beforehand. That book will be very helpful.
I'll type that in the chat for you, Vandana G. Yeah, so what we'll do is after this webinar, we'll email you the recording. We'll have the links in there, some of these other questions, so that you have all that, Sumedaji. So you will get that in the next couple of days, Sumedaji. And the tuition for this course is $300. We have scholarship if you are in Bharat or Africa or South America, depending on kind of the median income levels. So we can provide scholarships based on that, or on need if you fill that out. So it's a $300 course. It'll go for about 11 weeks, October 6th to December 15th. And Dr. Swaminathan not kind of, he broke down in detail what is going to be covered week by week. Very, very interesting stuff. I'm glad that you're doing a deep dive into this. All right, let's see. What other questions do we have? Um, Dr. Swaminathan, if you can give some more context in terms of you're an expert on Upanishads, on Vedanta, on so many aspects, and you've taught a few different courses now at HUA, several different courses. Uh, you know, get into why this one in particular you're jumping into now. And then what, like you also mentioned, part one, part two, maybe the second aspect of Shankaracharya's commentary you'll get into, but this is focusing on the first one, just in context, because you
Yeah.
teach so much, you're so aware. Just give people a flavor for that.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. As I mentioned, there are 10 important Upanishads in the Vedantic literature. Of course, there are many Upanishads. 10 are considered important simply because Shankara wrote commentaries for 10. And among those 10 Upanishads, in the sequence of studies, a student who is fresh to Vedanta or who is some experience, some background but not in detail, they will start with Upanishads like Kathopanishad from the Krishna Yajurveda or Mundaka Upanishad from the Atharva Veda. Then they will migrate slowly to the Upanishads like Prashna Upanishad and Kena Upanishad, like that. Uh, so the reason why I chose Kena Upanishad, because it's not a very big Upanishad to begin with, four sections with at the most 12 mantras in one section. The others are lesser in number. But of all the Upanishads address the nature of the self, the truth of the world, the truth of the causal factor, and to show that everything is centers around this absolute reality, Brahman. That is, every Upanishad presents only that information. But the Kena Upanishad more eloquently and more crisply presents the nature of the self, who this I, because that is the that is the central question that one would be bothered with. One would want to know about oneself more so than what is the truth of the world. That comes later. But who am I? That inquiry, who am I? In order that question to come, also one has to have some reflections about one's experiences. So you go through life then you sometimes ponder philosophically, who am I, what am I doing, why I'm on this earth. Like this, these fundamental questions come to everyone. And finding the answers are not easy. And so naturally, you have to get into some technicalities. It is, somebody mentioned it is too technical. Yes, it is technical. Now, would I not be more interested in knowing about myself, notwithstanding the technicality? Like I would be interested in knowing artificial intelligence. That is very technical. So that interest that I may have in artificial intelligence, notwithstanding the technicality, and here also I should invest time to know about myself. This is the only opportunity in the human birth. Animals don't have that inquiry. Only human beings have that inquiry. And the Kena Upanishad, of all the Upanishads, presents this so beautifully. So I chose for that reason, because one has to make a fundamental discovery about oneself. Now, in that discovery, one finds fulfillment in the and the reason in the fulfillment in one's life. So that's the reason.
Nice. Makes a lot of sense. And thank you for explaining that. I've launched the poll. Please let us know if you're interested in enrolling in the course, and maybe if you're interested in enrolling in a program or a degree program at HUA or at the California College of Ayurveda. Just let us know. And so this class, the Kena Upanishad, is going to be starting October 6th. Got about a week at the same time, exactly a week. So please take this time to enroll, click, look through this. If you have questions, now is the time to ask. Um, I think you went over a lot of the details in terms of assignment, expected studying, reading, and of course, in the actual course, you're going to get deep into the dialogue, the conversation, the intricate analysis of this. And I think Swami Nathanji, you have a lot of open conversation. You take people's questions, you have dialogue, people bring their perspectives, and you engage in that way as well as part of your
Mhm.
course.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you
In
can talk about some of the people who've taken your course, their experience. I don't know if anybody in the chat right now or in the webinar right now has taken one of Dr. Swaminathan's course, but if you have, just let me know and we can unmute you and you can share your experience. But just the range of people, even though if it is technical, if it is heavy, the range of people, why they take the course, what they get out of it, you can share some thoughts on that, Swaminathanji.
uh, in my experience, uh, people who have taken my classes, uh, first of all, they they to some extent they are probably surprised in the following way, because the way I teach the course or any course that I have taught, it will be taught with a lot of details, and it will be taught at a fundamental level. It will be taught to unravel a lot of mistaken notions about many terminologies, etc. So first they are surprised, but at the end, unanimously, I have never seen anybody complain about my classes. They are only over enthused, overjoyed, because they find the level of depth which they are not able to see elsewhere. So I'm very happy about that. Uh, I think Bill Fairchild, if I remember, I think he was in one of my earlier classes, so he might be able to say something.
Namaste, Dr. Swami Nathan G.
Namaste.
Yes, I took the Shanti mantra class It was the first class I took actually at HUA along, pardon me, along with the intro to Hindu studies. It was quite an adventure, and I was so happy to see you were offering this course. I can't wait to take another one.
Thank you.
Can't wait. I would encourage anyone on this webinar to sign up if you're able to. I just can't wait. And you know, I'll struggle. I know I'll struggle a little bit. I had to ask about the transliteration because I'm not able to read the Devanagari, but I can figure out. I can figure out with the transliteration, and as we did in the first class I took, Dr. Swami Natan is very helpful, and he's able to make, especially for Westerners, in my opinion, some very complicated and very hard to understand sometimes for Westerners, things much easier to understand.
Great. Thank you for sharing and being with us, Mr. Fairchild. Appreciate you so much. Looking forward to seeing you in the class. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. Great, great. Okay, this is your last chance to get in your questions. Just maybe I can make the pitch one more time. This is what Hindu University of America is about, digging deep with a faculty that's going to take their time and explain things to you, have the conversation, something that may have felt obscure, but is so critical to knowing, to perceiving how we know, to going down the path. So please consider taking this course, enrolling. I think the link is still just up in the chat, one message above. And again, starting next week. If you have financial issues, just send me an email. We definitely want to have people take this course. If you are interested. And that's the other thing, you know, when you are nowhere and you're seeking, I think this is the kind of class that can really take you to the next level. So please do consider enrolling. If you're part of a program, this is a perfect class to take. If this is the first class that you take at HUA, you will not be disappointed. So please consider taking Dr. Swaminathan's course starting next week. I'm Ankur Patel, the Director of Outreach at Hindu University of America, and we are so glad to continue to offer courses on a whole range of subjects and with wonderful faculty like Dr. Swaminathan. So please do consider enrolling. All right. Dr. Swaminathan, let me hand it to you for your closing thoughts and maybe a shloka if you want to end us with one of those.
Well, thank you all for participating in the webinar. I really appreciate your interest, and I encourage you to consider taking this course. It's any exposure to Upanishad I consider that as a blessing. Blessing because it opens up a door that we never even thought existed. So the door, it opens up to a world, to a different dimension of one's introspection and self-examination, to discover the nature of oneself, and also to discover what is the truth of all that is surrounding us. And that gives a balanced perspective about life. So I would suggest that you do look into, if you can, consider take this class. So I appreciate it. Thank you for joining. I appreciate your time. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat Brahmarpanamastu Krishnarpanamastu.